Good morning, everyone. Please continue to enjoy the lunch. Thank you so much for your time today. My name is Stephen Selva. I'm with the Shiloh Pacific Advisors. I'm 2016 incoming Kakaako Improvement Association president. We'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us for the first 2016 general membership meeting. Big mahalo to Thomas Sorensen of the Honolulu Design Center for providing the lunch and this always an awesome venue. And before we introduce the 2016 board, I just want to extend my sincere appreciation and gratitude for Sherry. And where's Sherry? Because she normally hides at this point. There she is. She does such a wonderful job year after year, and one of the reasons I joined Kakaako Improvement Association years ago. So she's been phenomenal, and we're so thankful to have her. We also wanted to thank, and I don't see Bobby Lau in the audience. She might be running late on one of the many developments that she's working on with Howard Hughes, but I want to thank Bobby for her leadership in getting us through last year. So she's a phenomenal figure, and over the years I've always loved watching her and her career progress. So before we, so let's go ahead and introduce the Kakaako Improvement Board of Directors for 2016. And when I call your name, please stand to be recognized. And if we have everyone hold their applause to the end, just to help us with time. So Vice President Bobby Lau, who doesn't, she's not here at this time. Treasurer Baron Nakamura. Directors Mark Higa, Cope Murata, Jay Katawaki, Paul Kimura, Allison Lee, Bob Oda, Dexter Okada, and Peterson Rosario. So I want to have a big thank you to each board member, especially for their work year after year. So thank you very much, board. Moving on to announcements. So the first Kakaako Improvement KIA networking event in 2016 is scheduled for Wednesday, April the 15th. Has anyone in here attended a past networking meeting? So I see a couple hands. It's really a good opportunity to market your business. I've been to last three. I think I missed one, but last one we met some gentlemen and someone from First Foundation Bank. That's a new bank in the Kakaako area. So it's just a really interesting time. So I would recommend, bring your business cards, your flyers, some marketing material, and, attend those meetings. That's part of your membership. It's free of charge, and it's a brown bag lunch. So we have it at this location, too. So it's very easy to get to. There's a table in the back where KIA members have placed flyers, brochures, magazines, and business cards that can be picked up at the end of this meeting. So feel free, if you have something you want to put back there, please do so. And at the end, just take a look at that material and take it with you. And then also, we wanted to mention, this year, normally around January, I start to put the planning together for our Earth Day event. So I actually run the community side for Kakaako, as well as a past association, BOMA. And so we combined our resources and we put together an Earth Day event. And last year it was Mother Waldron Park, and we cleaned up a lot of the side streets and ended at South Street. This year we're going to expand on the idea a little bit. We don't have a date. We don't have a location, but it's likely going to be Mother Waldron Park and the surrounding area. But we're probably going to include some recycling elements to this. Mo'ida Ely, they have a much larger event. There's also some other neighborhood cleanups. So we're going to take some of those from those other events and include it for Kakaako. So we love it. I think we have about 105 people that show up every year. It's just a really fun time, and it's not hard, back-breaking work. We do paint the equipment, we take out graffiti, but most of it's also just networking, with business people in the area as well as residents. I think I'm the first KIA president to live in Kakaako, so I'm just waiting for my place to get finished being built, 400 Kiave. But so we want to build it with community involvement. We want residents, community leaders, Kamehameha schools. I just met with someone a couple days ago. They're wanting to get more involved this year as well. And they also have some events in that area. So just stay tuned. Sherry will post something on the website, and we'll get it out to you. So does anyone else have any other announcements you would like to make for Kakaako? No? Okay, and if you do, just please let us know, and we will get Sherry to get that posted or get it out in some means. So I just noticed the mayor, just thank you so much for joining us. Mayor Kirk Caldwell, he's going to be our first speaker, was born in Waipahu and raised in Hilo. The oldest son of a plantation and country doctor, he studied urban planning and economics at Tufts University, earned an MA from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, and received his law degree from the UH William S. Richardson School of Law. Mayor Caldwell was managing partner at law firm of Ashford & Wilson and began his public service career in 2002. When he was elected to the Hawaii State House of Representatives and quickly rose to become the House Majority Leader. Mayor Caldwell was appointed Managing Director for the City and County of Honolulu in January 2009, and at that time served as acting mayor in 2010. He was elected to the 14th mayor of Honolulu in November 2012 and assumed office on January 2nd, 2013. Mayor Caldwell is married to Donna Tanui, and Donna served as State Commissioner of Financial Institutions in the Oroshi administration and was appointed by President Bill Clinton as chair of the U.S. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, and is currently vice chair for the Bank of Hawaii. Kirk and Donna have a daughter, Maya, who attends college. So with no further ado, we'd love to invite our mayor of Honolulu. Thank you, sir.
It's almost afternoon, so good noon and aloha. Sorry for being a little bit late. We just have a small issue on rail going on at the council right now, but looks like there's a vehicle that's moving forward so we can finally see an alternative to more roads, more highways, and more gridlock going into the future. And I'll talk a little bit about rail. But on the way out, I grabbed this book, Save Our Kakaako. I know some of you may have seen it. It's autographed by Ron Iwami, who's a good friend, and when I was in the House of Representatives as a majority leader, I supported a bill that prevented the building of a condo in Kakaako Waterfront Park, where the parking lot and in some of the grassy area they were going to build a condo. And I cared greatly about what was occurring there because I think Kakaako is an extremely special place. And just driving here, through parts of Kakaako and reflecting back to times way, way, way before us, way before Cook showed up here, this was a very, very special place to the native Hawaiians who lived here. In addition to the salt ponds where they could get the salt that they needed, it was also great fisheries, both in terms of fish ponds onshore, but great fisheries offshore. And as a partner at Ashford & Riston, I would, from time to time, usually on land cases, but there are great fishery cases. I mean, some of the great landmark cases in the Kingdom of Hawaii arguing about who owned the fisheries. Because in the old days, the property extended all the way into the ocean under Ahupua'a, and the resource off of this place was incredible. It's a very, very special place. And as the capital grew here in Honolulu, and as the plantation economy grew, some of the first plantation guys to leave the plantation, where did they come on this island? They moved to Kakaako. Before they went to Makali or Mo'iliili or Kalihi, they came to Kakaako. And it was a thriving community, mainly for Japanese Americans. And they had the honganji, and they had the plantation camp kind of housing. And today, you'll meet some of the old folks that talk about growing up here. And it was a real community. A lot of people living, a lot of people bonded together, and this place thrived. But it slowly converted into an industrial area. And as you know, the Honolulu Iron Works, which, well, I grew up in Hilo, I remember coming here. I remember the Iron Works. You guys remember the Iron Works. It was the largest employer in the state of Hawaii. 5,000 people in the heyday of the Iron Works when they were doing all the stuff for all the plantations, fixing their equipment, their gigantic cane haul stuff. The Iron Works was thriving, and it was a place of huge employment. And then as the plantation economy wound down, the Iron Works also wound down and finally went out of business. It wasn't a great center of employment in any one business, but it was multifaceted in terms of a lot of industrial things. And as you know, HCDA was created because they recognized the importance of Kakaako, halfway between Waikiki and downtown Honolulu, and what could happen in this place if things were done right. And they recognized in order to do it right, you had to build infrastructure on which everything else would be built to really make sure it could be redeveloped. That means greater capacity for sewer, greater capacity for stormwater runoff, greater capacity for roads and traffic, and those things were worked on for years, for decades. So much so that almost $300 million has been invested by the state of Hawaii in Kakaako. Now, it drives me crazy sometimes when guys come, hey, Mayor, why do you support projects in Kakaako? There's no capacity for it. And I tell them, let's get in my car, let's drive around Kakaako. There are streets that definitely substandard, but there are a lot of streets with wide sidewalks, underground utilities, culverts, lighting. Now let's go to Makale Moilili. Let's drive anywhere in Makale Moilili. Let's drive anywhere in Kalihi and find what's in Kakaako. You don't find it. And I tell them that actually there is the infrastructure and the capacity to handle growth, probably more so in Kakaako than anywhere else in the urban core. It's not the opposite, but people tend to believe it's the opposite. So for me, I bring this book, Save Our Kakaako. It's about saving the Makai side. Everything Makai of Ala Moana Boulevard. But for me, the two work together. The Mauka side, where we're standing and where many of you work and develop and grow, is equally important. And I think they're one. If I had it my way, I'd try to figure out how do we bridge Ala Moana Boulevard and make it more friendly to people from both sides to cross back and forth. Because we'll hear from people, hey, with all this development, there are not enough parks in Kakaako. Well, from here to walk to Ala Moana Beach Park, how long do you think that takes? 10 minutes max. And you got a park of 127 acres, and if you just go Eva, you got Kiwala Basin, open, beautiful harbor, and then you got Kakaako Waterfront Park, another 50 some odd acres. Probably by square foot, there's more park space in this general area than other parts of the island. But people think the park has to be right next door. The point is they don't realize the park is there because this boulevard acts as a wall to people wanting to go back and forth. And I think there are things that we can do. I think what you see Howard Hughes talking about down by Kiwalo Basin and making a 3-acre park and opening up to the Owai that used to go through there, it still flows out into Kiwalo, and maybe doing something to make the road look different by just maybe painting it different, putting kind of a top-of-beat pattern on it or something, connects both sides. But the point is, it is really Makai and Mauka that is so important. So I know you wanted me to talk about certain things. One was homelessness, one was rail. Two of the most controversial, if not the most controversial issues on this island, and two of the issues I have not run from at all. You'll never hear me blame someone else. You'll never hear me say it's a state issue, not a county issue. You never hear me blame some other mayor for something. They're under my watch, and I'm addressing them. And we're making progress. Here's something. I just got back from Washington. I was up there last week, fled as the snowstorm came in. And I thought one of the most insightful things that our President Barack Obama said, and he invited all the mayors, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, to the East Room of the White House. He gave a standard speech, and he told the press, leave, and then he opened it up to questions. And they all centered pretty much around, it's your last year, reflect kind of things. And one of the things they asked him was, how do you handle this constant blame by Congress and others that you're not doing enough? And yet you still have this high step. You continue to face the issues. And one thing he said is, we're today driven by a 24/7 news cycle, right? News all the time, social media all the time. There's a crisis breaking, you go on CNN right now, there's a bottom thing, crisis breaking, things need to happen. And he said, but many of the problems we deal with as president or me as mayor in the city have been going on for a long time. It's like homelessness doesn't become a problem. It's been around, evolving, changing, but it's been around. And yet people expect that it's going to be solved in 5 months. And every homeless person is going to be gone in 5 months, and that problem is resolved. And then as a mayor or a governor, in terms of EGA, we live in that cycle about we got to show a solution. that weren't designed for people to live on. And a good example is right in your neighborhood. Ohe and Olomehane Street by the Children's Discovery Center, as you saw, had 300 people living there. Now, I enforced for a while, but I started asking HCDA to step up. It's under your jurisdiction, and to help us. And I wanted cooperation from the state. Now, the good news is the press coming in and really focusing on this brought the state. We had a new governor come in, and he became aware. I'd been doing it for 2 years, and we've teamed up. And we made a difference, but you can only get people off of sidewalks where they're not supposed to be. It's called a sidewalk, right, for walking, not for sleeping and camping on. And using these laws to enforce so people don't stay where they shouldn't be. But here's the most critical part, and the police came to me and said, Mayor, you cannot allow 300 people anywhere on this island, particularly in the urban core, to concentrate tightly together that are homeless, because a criminal element comes in to prey on the weak. And the homeless are the weakest of the weak. And they were, right? You saw assaults, you saw sexual assaults, robberies, beatings, those kind of things. So that's the disruption part. By making it less convenient for someone to be where they're not supposed to be, hopefully they will seek some type of shelter space. And in places like Waikiki, which is not Kakaako, but we put in sit-lie also, because once we could enforce against having tents and those kind of things, there is no law to say you can't sit or lie on a sidewalk. And people argue, hey, Kakaako Avenue, wide sidewalks. You can walk around, but if you're a tourist looking at the coconut tree, the sunset, you don't expect someone to be lying down there, and they were falling. So we passed a law to do that. And I think places like Waikiki, much better. They're in Kapahulu now, but they're not in Waikiki. And Kakaako Makai, much better. There's not 300 people, about 60 to 70 for the most part right now, right in that little sliver coming out to Ala Moana Boulevard. And because we're enforcing over there, they're in Mother Waldron Park now. And by the way, that park is closed at night. The police go and say, you gotta leave, and they do. They walk around the corner. When the police drive away, they come right back. Police come over, gotta leave, come right back. So this cat and mouse game. But part of it is the disruption part. The other part is the housing part. That's the compassion part. And so we have been out there acquiring properties. You heard we bought a place on Hassinger Street. It used to be a school. We bought a place in Kalihi. We bought 2 places in Waianae. We're looking to close another place shortly in town. And so we are acquiring properties that will be rehabilitated. And here's the hard part. We're trying to buy places that are vacant. Why? If we buy places filled with folks, and we're trying to buy affordable places, what happens? We kick them out. We make them homeless or potentially homeless. It's hard to find buildings that are vacant. And when we find them, by the way, the other struggle is there's a bidding war going on now. The real estate market is hot. 2 properties. One was a dormitory for Chaminade. 22 offers were made. We were the highest bid of the 22, but they didn't pick us because they were concerned about what the neighbors would say and get pissed off at Chaminade, saying, you just sold your building to the city and they're moving homeless folks there. We don't like it. So they took a bid that was a couple $100,000 less to avoid the controversy. This is the world we live in the real estate world. You know, willing buyer or willing seller. Another place in Kapahulu, next to Waikiki, where the homeless are. Something like 15 bids. That one we were overbid. So, but we're looking to acquire places. And we're looking in Kakaako too. Because providers have told us that homeless will only move into places that they live in. They're not going to everyone tells me, Mayor, move the homeless out to Kalailoa, Barbers Point. Because no one's over there. Put them all over there. Well, short of arresting someone and saying, we're going to take you there, and we don't have laws like that in our country, where you can pick someone out and say, you're homeless, you smell, you stink, you uji, we're going to take you over here. You can encourage them to go. And how you do that is 1, by enforcement, and 2, by providing a site that's welcoming. And so that's what we are trying to do. And we're trying to do it here in this area at Sand Island at our site out there. So it's close to town. It's not Kalailoa. It's not far away. It's within the urban core. And we have about 25 people in place right now. We're processing them. And those are guys who are coming from this area that we're placing out there. And we even have a bus that Roberts Hawaii donated, so we'll bring them into town to the bus stop so they're not out at the end of Sand Island and no way to come in. And I think it's working. But here's the other thing. We have actually housed last year in permanent supportive housing, Housing First, 769 folks. Now, the bulk of them are veterans, because I made a pledge. 25 of the biggest cities, Michelle Obama said, we need to do our patriotic duty and house folks that put their lives on the line for us, fought in different wars, come home, they look okay, but inside they're broken, and they can't fit back in, and they fall out of a job, and they become homeless. And we need to take care of those folks. I was the last mayor of 25 to say yes. Because I promise to work hard, but I usually don't promise I don't promise, hey, I promise to make education second to none. How many times have you heard that? So, but I did make the pledge. And by making the pledge, it made us work really hard. And I made the pledge less than a year ago. And we actually housed 596 homeless vets under that. Now, we didn't house every homeless vet on this island. We have somewhere between 50 and 60 still. But we're close. And we're going to continue to work to house those vets, and then as more become homeless, we'll work to house those too. But the good news is we are housing folks. But if you ask most people, they say they're still homeless. And it's a huge problem, and it is. And I believe that it's because of the highly visible chronic homeless in the urban core, in your area, that people drive by every day. No one is complaining about the guys living out at the small boat harbor in Waianae, of which there are about 300 folks there in the Keawe and Halekoa, and it's a well-managed group of people that are self-managed. I call that a safe zone. I think that is something we should look at too, that I'm not against doing. But we are working really, really hard to house. You know, we're pushing other affordable housing initiatives, something that some of you in this room are aware of. You know, it's a three-pronged stool that we're talking about here. One is we pushed ADUs, accessory dwelling units. It's now law. And there's potentially 120 lots on this island that could put a second unit on it. You still can't cover more than 50% of a lot, of a housing lot. So we're not talking about making it more urban, than what would otherwise be allowed. And it could be either converting a garage into a unit, attaching something to a main structure, or having a separate structure. And we're pushing this. Of course, you got to have sewer capacity in certain areas, and you got to have off-street parking in certain areas. And there are people who have been denied their permits because of that issue. But we don't want to have issues regarding having sewage spills because of capacity issues. That's number one prong. Number two prong is through transit-oriented development around rail stations. As you know, we're creating zones. We're going to be coming here into Kakaako. We're close. We have a temporary one in Ala Moana. But what we're doing is we're encouraging developers who own land or interested in developing around rail stations, telling them, you're getting your zoning up front. Instead of coming in and saying, we want our zoning, and you negotiate the zoning, and we give you the zoning in exchange for certain things, we're telling you get the zoning right now. So if you build affordable housing, particularly rental, you get you get height increases, you get density bonuses, you don't have to build any parking if you don't want to. You can turn your parking garage into units, or you could build parking and rent it for guys who are going to use rail. But we'll let the marketplace decide. But we want to put those incentives in place. The third prong, which we're still working on, is highly controversial, and probably some of the developers in this room are troubled by it, is the regulatory side. You know, right now, 30% of all units need to be at 140% AMI. We're talking lowering the AMI to maybe 80% or 60%. And that is troubling to developers, because how do you make money when you lower it to that area? And so what we're saying is perhaps we drop the percentage of units smaller. Maybe it's 10%. We're working with developers on that. And we're saying perhaps if you do it for rental at a lower percentage AMI, we'll give you the density bonuses, we'll give you the height increases, we'll forgive the parking, but we'll waive real property taxes for if it's a rental unit. For the entire 30 years, you pay no real property tax. We'll forgive sewer hookup fees. We'll forgive park dedication fees in the urban core, because we don't need more parks. We need to take care of the parks that we have. But what do we do to add to your capital stack where you'll say, we can build at that rate? We don't want you to not build. We don't want to pass a law and I go home and pull the covers around my chin and say, okay, I feel good, I did something about affordable housing, and nothing happened. We want to figure out what can we do to incentivize the building of more true affordable housing in the urban core. And if we do that, we make this a more fair and equitable place to live, and we don't see our guys moving to our kids moving to the mainland, and guys on the mainland who have a good income coming here. Because then our community changes in a way that I believe is not healthy. That is the third leg of this stool that we're pushing. And I think if we get there, that's a game changer for me. And we've never gotten there from when I was born, right? From when we were all born, affordable housing has been an issue forever. And the private sector hasn't addressed it effectively or efficiently because we all build to the market where we can make the most money. And I know that as an attorney at my firm for 30 years, I build at the highest amount I could bill my client. And I look at all the other firms, what they were billing by the hour, and we, kind of follow what each other's doing because we want to make a good living if we can. So I want to find a way to find that balance and incentive. I wanted to move on to our rail project. And as you can see, I talk about rail. For me, it's about infrastructure, all about infrastructure. Administration is all about infrastructure, pretty much. 5 priorities: roads, rails, sewer, parks, bus. I put that in as all, it's moving people around, creating a city where we can live well. And it's not just about the city, it's about the country too. I believe that if we provide the infrastructure that we need to develop vertically in a more concentrated way inside the urban core, and I call that inside the urban growth boundary. So I put Ho'opili and Coral Ridge in there because it's inside the urban growth boundary. Yes, on former ag lands. But it means everything outside stays the way it is. And I think that's, we can live better on this island doing that. And I believe we can live better in a dense way if we have the right kind of infrastructure, better maintained parks, better parks. And I believe this infrastructure allows us to do exactly that. So we preserve the best of what we are on our past, but also we can move forward because we got 1 million people here now. 8,000 short of 1 million. When I was born, it was 350,000, and I'm 63. That's a lot of people in a short period of time. And we can't stop people from coming. So how do we allow people to come, but we can still live better? And how do we allow people to come where it becomes highly unaffordable if we don't build more product? And where's that product going to be built? You can build it horizontally and just keep growing out and up ridges, despoiling more of our INA, or you go vertically. I prefer the alternative of going vertically and living better in our core. And rail is about that. I'm not a big roads guy. I don't want to build more freeways and highways. We have 640 square miles on this island, of which most of it is hilly and mountainous. Can't build the roads there very easily. And the rest of it is pretty much paved. And why would we want to pave more? And invite more cars, shipping more dollars offshore for the gas that it's used, raising the heat level, contributing to global warming when there is an alternative. And I believe rail is that alternative. Much smaller footprint, 25 feet wide, 30 feet in the air. It could be underground. It costs even more. But it's somewhere where you can add capacity, but not by building more rail system, but by adding more cars. So we're getting 80 cars on a transit system that's 20 miles long, 21 stations. And we could add another 80 cars. So they cost money, but it's not like you got to build a freeway and then you buy the car and you buy the gas and you pay the registration before you can even participate in that system. This system, once built, is paid for, and then you just add cars. You have the operation and maintenance issue. But I believe it's a more sustainable, better way to go. And what's really incredible is from out at the Kroc Center to Ala Moana, 42 minutes. So it can be raining cats and dogs. You could have a major accident. You could have a military truck hit the top of an overpass. All those things, the zipper lane gets stuck, but you can take the train. Every other city has this. And we're building a system that is right-sized for us. The opponents will say, hey, Mayor, we're not New York, we're not Boston, we're not San Francisco. And I go, those cities have a hub and spoke rail system that goes, Boston's 800 miles of rail. We're talking 20 miles. We're building the right size system for our population. But here's the other thing. We're one of the most dense urban cores of any city in the country. We rank in the top 5 for buildings over 10 stories. Yeah, we don't have New York's height. We don't have Chicago's height or LA's height, but we have a lot of high buildings. And why is that? Because you don't have a lot of land. So the only way you do is go up. And so we are dense, and the system is going right through where most of the density is. You know, they say it should go this way or that. It's placed there because the EIS said this is where you get the greatest ridership, including Ho'opili, which is going to have 25,000 people living there someday. So it's being built through areas where rail is going to go, and it's coming through here, 3 stations. And what I get really excited about is at Keoho Place, Stanford Carr's new project. His project wraps around a transit station, the first one. There's going to be one here stopping by Howard Hughes property, and Tatapo is here. And I tell their guys they should wrap a development around that station. And then we got one going to Ala Moana that's going to be right wrapped, and it's going to be a great, great station. But I think what's exciting about it is you're going to have TOD going around these places, and everywhere where rail goes. And I saw it personally. I worked for Dan Inouye in the 70s when Carter was president. They're building Metro. Just left the council hearing. Everyone's saying no one's going to ride it. It's not going to work. We're not a transit riding system. We're not mass transit, they say. And then I ask them, okay, we got a bus system. How many people, how many rides on our bus every day? 225,000 rides on our bus every day. So you got 1 million people. That's 1/4 of the population taking rides. We are mass transit. People would like to get out of the car and get on a bus and get stuck in traffic in that bus. I believe they will take rail, which won't be stuck in traffic in a bus, and go faster. And it works in every other city. But DC argued the same thing. And today, their metro system is so packed with people, they got to retrofit their cars to handle more weight and rebuild their cars. So it works. But the other thing I saw is where everywhere rail stopped, TOD happened. So DuPont Circle, kind of a cool place. They got a major station there. DuPont Circle is even more booming today. More cafes, more residences, more stuff. Georgetown said, we don't want rail because we don't want those kind of people coming to Georgetown. You know, it's Lahe Maka Maka place. They want those kind of people, probably African Americans and others going up there. So they didn't get rail. But it went out to other areas. Go to Georgetown today. It's not, when I was there, that was a cool place to go have drinks and stuff like that. It's not as cool anymore. And where rail goes is where more people go, and it's a cool place, happening place. Because particularly young people, the millennials, they don't need to have a car. They like mass transit. They want good street activity and nightlife. So I think you're going to see huge improvement in Kakaako around TOD and more development in a good way. And I hope it's affordable housing where people live here, work here, and maybe travel to go to the west side to go surf, but live here. And you're going to be able to bring your surfboard on the train. We're going to be the first system in the world that you have surf racks. We're the first system in the United States that's going to be driverless. You know, I say Hawaii follows everyone. We're leading the nation in a driverless system, which means we only have 300 employees versus buses 1,800. Because every bus needs a driver, and you need substitute drivers, and they drive more than 8 hours a day. So the cost, that's why you'll hear, and it's Don Horner will say, former CEO and president of First Hawaiian Bank, that per mile to operate the bus system is 80 cents per mile. For rail, it's 40 cents. It's because of the driverless system for the most part. The other thing, though, I just wanted to throw in there as part of this infrastructure are bike lanes. Highly controversial. It's more controversial than rail, more controversial than choice, more controversial than marriage equality. And it's because we're putting a bike lane where there are cars. And we're a car-centric community and have been for over a century. And we're all used to that. I'm used to it. But I also remember when they changed King Street from 2 ways to 1 way, and people went nuts. It's going to cause accidents. People are not going to know how do you turn right and left. People still want to go, you know, Eva instead of Diamond Head on King or Beretania. And now people are used to that, but we're changing it a little bit by putting a bike lane pilot. But I do believe in complete streets. I do believe that there's more than one way to travel. I believe there's a lot of ways to travel, and we need, as a mayor, to give people the choice on how they want to travel and to be safe when they do it. And a protected bike lane is about being safe. Because right, as mayor, before the protected bike lane, people are complaining, people are riding on the sidewalks. Well, why do you think they're riding on the sidewalk? Want to guess? They didn't feel safe in the street. So they ride on the sidewalk, and the pedestrians didn't feel safe. So we're trying to sidewalks for pedestrians, protected bike lane for bikers, and then the cars, and the bus, and rail. But it's this infrastructure, this grid-like infrastructure, multimodal way, complete streets. And it includes things like parklets. And I see Kamehameha schools here, and there's a bill being heard today at the council about parklets. So now some people will be mad because they're going to take a parking space and turn it to a little mini park or a place where you can put some planters and picnic tables and go into the restaurant, order a hot dog, coffee, bento, and then sit outside in weather like today, which is beautiful. But we're taking a parking space away. This is change. All these things I'm talking about are about change. People are uncomfortable with change. But I believe if we do this correctly, we're building a better place for our next generation. And I think we need to stay this course. Otherwise, staying the same means we are shrinking. And we're not addressing the challenges that we have. So the last thing, infrastructure, I love sewers. I love them. And we're spending $4.7 billion on rebuilding our sewer system on this island, and a ton right through here. That unfortunate sewage spill, back when we had that huge rain, was because we were rebuilding our force main and the pipes had not been connected. They knew to connect them, but they thought the storm was coming 1 or 2 days later, and it came earlier, and they had not connected. We've learned lessons from it. But think about this. We are rebuilding the entire system through your area, so you can have more projects in this area. And we have the coolest thing. Right now, there's a sewer pipe, big one, that goes down from the Ala Moana side of Honolulu Harbor, under the harbor, across, back up to Sand Island. First ever. Ships sailing back and forth and our sewer pipe there, moving sewage from Kuli'o'o all the way through Waikiki, all the way through this area, out to Sand Island where it's being processed. The other cool thing is at Sand Island, we're building a second egg, you know that round thing, called a digester. It takes the sludge that's left over after the sewage is processed, and it dries it out, and it creates pellets for fertilizer. And I've fertilized with those pellets. It smells a little bit like chicken manure. And I'm trying to encourage our guys to use it more, but they're saying that's human poop. The people won't like it in our parks and golf courses. I said, it doesn't smell any different than chicken manure, and I use that in our house. And some of us, right, we buy cow manure too, mix it in our garden. But it is really, really cool. And here's what's happened because we're rebuilding our sewer system. In 2006, we had 200 sewage spills in 1 year. In 2015, 45. Now, the EPA loves that. We're doing this partly because they were concerned about our sewage spills. So we're doing a lot on sewage. And you think of every great city, Rome, Paris. You even go to Angkor Wat, Angkor Thom, there's a sewage system there. 1 million people lived in Cambodia, around these capital cities. Angkor means capital. I didn't know that. I went there a couple of years ago. I was blown away by just how people lived and how the basic things you need, water, sewer, roads, to move people. You know, in Rome, you can see the sewer system that was built 300 years BC, and it's still working. Because you can have 1 million people living in Rome without getting rid of the sewage. And you needed roads, the Appian Way, going north out of Rome. Appian Way, you can walk south, right? You can go see, that's a great road, historic tourist attraction. But going north, there's no actual road because it's autostrada. And it's 80 kilometers straight, built right on top of the road the Romans built. The point is that infrastructure is what helps communities thrive, and we're thriving because of this infrastructure that we're rebuilding, and I want us to thrive even more. The last thing on road repaving, as you know, one of our priorities is repaving roads. We paved almost 1,000 lane miles. No one has ever done that in the history of the state, federal, state, or county. Yes, we still have a lot of potholes, and we're filling. The only way you actually deal with a pothole problem, you can refill them. That is a temporary fix, no matter what, and they'll pop out again. But because the integrity of the road, the infrastructure is permanently damaged. You got to plow off the old road and lay a new road. And we're doing that. We're doing it in communities around this island. We're doing it now in Beretania. We're going to start shortly. We're restarting Kapahulu. Some of the roads in this area we're doing, but some we're not. And I just want to mention briefly, because I know it's frustrating even for me, but you got the Chun brothers, you may have dealt with them, who have bought a quitclaim deed and assert ownership of these roads and charge for parking. We actually paved one road, and they went out the very next day and put a sign saying, no parking, come pay us. Well, there's a law that says if private property rights are asserted on a road, we don't pave it. It's a private road. So we've stopped filling potholes in certain areas. Now, a lawsuit has been filed by some of the owners, and we're looking at taking a more aggressive position too. Because I think these guys are stealing from all of you. And it's outrageous. And so I've told our Corporation Council we need to look at what we can do to assert our rights, whether it's some kind of condemnation action, and then we take care of these roads. But I want the state to be involved and HCA to be involved in this too. Because the next thing I don't want to have happen is this legislature says, okay, every disputed road on this island, county, you take it. Because that's over $1 billion worth of improvement we'd have to take. We're not a bottomless money pit here. But you got ideas on how to deal with that issue? I want to know. Because we need to do much better. Finally, on just parks, you know, Ala Moana, we picked Ala Moana Beach Park as our signature park to repair. We're just not, you know, I made the unfortunate mistake, and Andrew Perez back there, he now works for us, but he interviewed me, and when I talked about it, he said, Mayor, what do you want to see different in that park? I said, a place where I can buy poke and drink a beer and watch the sunset. From that, they assumed I wanted Alan Wong in there, a Hai Muck restaurant, and from there, they thought I wanted to bring Prada and Gucci and everything else in there and build a shopping center. What I'm talking about is how do we activate the park even more? And so right now, we're rebuilding the walking path. We're going to start shortly around Magic Island. We repainted the sidewalk along Ala Moana Boulevard. We're redoing the irrigation system, so the grass, right now it's green because we've had a lot of rain, but it will start to dry out, so the grass is green all the time. We fixed the most heavily used restroom on this island, Ala Moana, right at that corner, elbow, and there's that story, right? We fixed it, and less than a week later, someone went in and smashed the entire toilet in the women's restroom. This is a huge challenge for us, by the way. Is how do we get people to show respect for our public facilities? You go to Ueno Park in Tokyo, their main park, where all the museums are. There's not even garbage cans in that park. Because you know what the Japanese people do? They take their garbage back out and throw it away somewhere else. But I'm just saying they show malama for the park. How do we build this culture? This is our front yard. You would not do this to your own yard. Please don't do this. This is your yard. And I'm reaching out because help me try to do this. Now we fixed the toilet. It's hard enough just to keep it clean every day, but how do we not have to spend energy fixing things that get purposely broken? So our manager said, Mayor, how do you feel about metal toilets? I said, like in prison, I said, I'm open, but I go, you know, we had that in the transit center parking garage, you know, the new one where the Alapai bus barn used to be? We had a metal toilet. You know what someone did? They went in there with a hammer and pounded it into a small ball. So they pounded the metal. Why? I don't get it. I don't get it. But we're putting a lot of effort in Ala Moana. We're going to scrape the rocks off the beach. You know, there's coral popping up. So because to restore it with sand, huge. We're going to get an EIS and all of that. We're going to do that later, but we're going to be doing that this coming year. And finally, along Ala Moana Boulevard, where it's just dead grass and brown dirt, we're actually put out a contract, and by this summer, we should be planting monkey pod trees all along there, and then putting irrigation so the grass grows and the monkey pods grow, and you get a canopy on both sides, which should be really nice. And finally, we're looking to put a playground. There's no playground in Ala Moana, and we're looking to see if maybe the private sector would be willing to step up and help us build it. And we've seen really cool stuff that you see in like San Francisco Zoo. There's this great playground there, just state-of-the-art, cool things. So I'm going to stop here. I probably talked too long, yeah? Brennan, I'm sorry. But I want to say, you know, Kakaako for me, I get really excited. I think there's a way to do Kakaako that is fantastic for everyone. it is changing dramatically, and I know some people are fearful. And I'm not against high-end product, and I'm also for affordable. And I jog through Kakaako at least twice a week because I jog from the hallway and I go different ways and check things out. I like checking out the new buildings. But you and I could get in a car right now and I'll drive through. I'll point out 6 or 7 affordable projects that have been built and been in there for a while. This thing is all non-affordable. There is affordable. And more affordable will be coming. But just like any village, you get all kinds of mix. And I think that is occurring in Kakaako and should continue to occur. And I'm going to be pushing for more affordable housing everywhere in our urban core so that people can continue to live here that work so hard to live here every day. With that, I'll stop. Stick around for a while. I don't know if you want to ask questions. I don't know what the plan was there, but can I eat one of those lunches? And Andrew can have one too? Okay. Thank you. I'll turn this back over to you. Mahalo. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Do you have a moment? Did we have enough time for 2 questions? Does anyone have any questions for our mayor?
So we do, once a week we have cabinet meetings, the chief of police will give me those statistics. So what happens is they'll go in and warn, they say you can't be here and the park is closed, and they leave. So if they leave, they won't do any more than that. If they stay in the park, they'll cite them. They give them a ticket, basically. And these homeless, they're never going to pay the ticket. And then after they're cited, if they don't leave, they do arrest them as a last resort. But here's the thing, the homeless folks do kind of follow the law, right? When we enforce, they'll move out. So, for example, Mother Waldron, I was told they went by 3 times earlier this week, and they left every time they were warned, they left. So you can't arrest someone if they leave the park, and they just walk down somewhere. So here's the part that I've asked them go back more often, because if they can't sleep at all during the night, they're going to give up from going into that park. And then I want to say, hey, over here is Sand Island. We'll have a bus. Please go there, because you can sleep there. You can have a unit, keep your stuff, lock a door, use the bathroom, take a shower. All those things are there. It is the hardest part. But if they stay in the park, they're arrested. Now, here's the problem. You've seen stories, right? For a while, even went on national news. They actually arrested a couple tourists in Kapiolani Park. Because they were kind of belligerent. They were warned, you can't be here, the park is closed. It was midnight. They didn't leave. They cited them. They didn't leave. They arrested them. And then they complained, and said, Waikiki tourism we're not friendly to tourists. You got lots of warning. I wish you could stay, but we can't let you stay and not allow the homeless to stay, so everyone is out of the park. But we need to do a better job. And I've seen in Alamoana at night, when I've gone by with it's closed, I'll see people in the park. And I've told the police, we need to go in and tell them you got to get out. So, but they do get arrested if they don't leave. I wish we could arrest them right away. First time. If there's a law that says repeat being in the park when you're not, but there is no law that allows that. The law says you cannot be in the park after night, but you get warned first. Now, we are looking I asked our guys to look at additional legal tools, including loitering. We had loitering laws, which, if we had loitering laws, anti-loitering laws, we would have a very different looking place in all of these areas. But guess what happened? The Supreme Court of the state of Hawaii threw them all out. So, but I think we need to look at that again. But maybe we pass a law that says repeat offenders get arrested on the 3rd try. Yeah, that's a possibility. So that, Andrew, you hear that? Okay, go talk to our corporation counsel. Other questions? Yes.
Is there any research on the material we use for roads that we can improve the quality of the asphalt so it's more resilient?
So it's a question that's asked of me much, and when I first made the challenge to pave 300 lane miles every year to get to 1,500 in 5 years, I sat down with the Asphalt Institute, and I sat down with the professor at the University of Hawaii who's the expert in this. And they've actually confirmed that the material we use is the proper material. There are federal standards they've set and state standards, and we follow those. I've been told that, perhaps in certain areas where it's really dry, we could add a little bit more oil to make they call it tackiness, so it's a little bit more flexible because of the heat. But we are using the right material. And we've paved, I challenge, roads that we've repaved since I've been here, they're holding up. But the problem is, if you look at the statistics, we paved so few roads for so many years, because is that exciting, paving a road? If you're a mayor, you want to do cool looking things. And I'm doing sewer and road repaving because I think it's important. But so we've neglected roads, and many roads have not been repaved for 30 years. Their holes are filled. 30 years, the average life of a road is somewhere between 5 and 8 years, depending on heavy use. And the other thing we're doing is slurry seal and seal coat. So we're taking roads that are still good, but getting towards the end of their good before they really, once they crack, and once water gets in there, it's the water that compresses and it pops out. We seal it with a new paint. It's like paint, and it preserves the road for up to another 5 years. And you can do this a couple of times. You can prolong the life. But the bottom line is we are using the right mix. It's just people don't believe it because there's all these potholes. Well, the potholes we fill, they pop out. And some potholes we actually cut, right? Those last a little longer, but they're going to pop out. The minute we do a new road, if the Board of Water Supply comes in and cuts it for a trench, that road is damaged. And that's why we don't like to do a road until the Board of Water Supply or HEI does their work, because it'll come back out again. Okay? Yeah. Other questions? You said just two, but anyone else have one? Anyone need a green bin, gray bin, blue bin? Bulky item problems? Bike lane? Can I see a raise of hand? I'm just curious. So how many people want to see more bike lanes in the Kakaako area? Raise your hand. Okay? How many don't want to see any bike lanes in Kakaako? Raise your hand. Okay, good. I like the honesty. And I think there's probably more than just this gentleman here. But I understand the issue. We are doing one on South Street, and we're looking to do one in Halakawila when rail comes through. And we're looking to do Pi'ikoi and Pensacola and McCully, not all at one time. We're going to keep trying and tweaking to create a grid which invite more riding. You think about the first road that was built for a car, not too many cars, because if you're going to go one place, like doot, doot, you're not going to use a car. But as you build this grid, it invites more cars. I want to invite more riders to share the road with cars in a separate, protected way. Okay? Well, thanks. I really appreciate it. It's nice to be talking to you guys.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Caldwell. That was a very good presentation. We really appreciate the information as it relates to Kakaako. So we're going to speed along here. I apologize, we're running a few minutes late, but that was an excellent presentation. We're very appreciative. So we have a representative from HART, Dr. Brennan Morioka is currently the Deputy Executive Director for the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation. Dr. Morioka has also previously served as the Director of the State of Hawaii Department of Transportation as Vice President and Area Manager with CH2M Hill in the Honolulu office, and is Executive Vice President of Shoei Construction. He's a licensed civil engineer in Hawaii and California. So let's please bring up Dr. Morioka, and thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
All right, good afternoon, folks. Again, I'm Brennan Morioka. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for HART. I'm going to be giving a very higher level discussion on what rail is, what rail is not, and then I'll zip through, because the presentation is kind of long, but I'm going to zip through a lot of the presentation just because it's a lot of photos, a lot of renderings of what is coming up, what we're doing and what's coming up, because I think one of the big things that we find out, especially when we come to speak to organizations such as yours, and we do appreciate the opportunity to speak to groups like yours, because You typically are some of the more informed members of our community. And not on top of that, you guys are far more networked than the average person. And so when we come out, we want to provide you with some of the accurate information, or at least the information that we believe most accurately reflects our project. Because when you all go back and you are formulating your opinions on whether you're going to support rail, not support rail, whether you like it or you don't like it, and then that influences how you're going to talk to your family and your friends, your coworkers. And so at a minimum, and regardless of what your opinion is going to be, even after today's presentation, as long as your opinion is based on some of the right facts, that's what's most important. You can still dislike rail after this presentation, but at least you're going to dislike it for at least for the factual stuff that I'm going to be presenting to you. So I'm just going to zip through a lot of this and then open it up to questions and answers, because that's usually where we get the most dialogue on the discussion on rail, because everybody has an opinion. Whether you tell the posters that you don't have an opinion or not, you really do, because we are one of the most visible projects out there right now. We are the largest capital project in the history of our state, and it's one of the more extremely controversial topics, second only to, I think, bike lanes, right? So we always start off our presentations with what the project is, because you'd be surprised, we're not surprised anymore, but you'd be surprised that people still don't really know where our rail goes, where it starts, where it stops. So we are a 20-mile elevated guideway system. The mayor mentioned that we are a fully automated driverless system. We're the first in the United States. There's one in North America, in Vancouver, and there's about 22, 23 other automated driverless systems across the world. So we're not the first in the world, and our operator on Salto Breda, who is now Hitachi, operates about 13 of them. So we do have the operator who is most experienced in automated and driverless systems. We start off in East Kapolei. We continue down Farrington Highway to Pearl Highlands, or to Leeward Community College and Waipahu High School, where our maintenance facility is, down through Pearl City, down Kamehameha Highway to the Aloha Stadium, continue down past Pearl Harbor Naval Base into the Honolulu International Airport, where most people still don't know that we go there. People still believe that we go down Salt Lake Boulevard. Then we get on to Dillingham, continue into town, into downtown area, onto Halekuila, and we enter Kakaako proper, and then we finish at Ala Moana Shopping Center. So we do have 21 stations along the 20-mile route. So the discussion is no longer whether rail will happen or will it not happen. It has gotten to the point where people are accepting that rail is going to happen, especially, and I'm going to show you the photos, because especially people, once they go out to the west side, they finally realize that, wow, you've actually built 6 miles of guideway, right? We're already 6 miles out of the 20 miles of guideway actually complete. And so now the discussion or the questions become, so once you guys are in operation, what will you do? What will you look like? And so our trains will run 4 a.m. to midnight. At least that's the current schedule. That might change depending on where the demand is. People might want to go a little earlier, so we might start a little earlier, start a little later, and then we'll also just adjust our ending time. But at the end of the day, our trains all do have to go back to our maintenance facility, and I do have a picture of that, I believe. During peak hour, during the morning rush and then afternoon rush, our trains will arrive at every station once every 5 minutes. And then during the non-peak hours, they'll arrive every 10 to 11 minutes during non-peak hours. We are working with the bus so that we will have a single system-wide fare system, right? Because one of the big things that you want to do for a transit system, whether it's bus or rail, is make that decision for somebody to choose to ride rail or choose to ride bus as easy as possible. And that's a consistent theme that we build our system on, is accessibility, making that access to our system as easy as possible, so that when they have to make that instantaneous decision, am I going to take the H2 off-ramp straight to the Pearl Highlands garage, I know immediately that it's a very quick decision, and it's going to as easy as possible, rather than continuing in traffic and sitting for another hour to get from the H1, H2 merge into downtown. So we are working with the bus, as well as other entities, bike share, ride share. We want to make those kinds of fare payment as common and simple as possible. We will be fully ADA compliant, and like the mayor said, we will be the first rail system that will allow surfboards onto our rail system. So we do allow bicycles, surfboards, wheelchairs, strollers, luggage, because we do stop at the stadium. And then, although you're still traveling from West Kapolei to Ala Moana Shopping Center is about 42 minutes. So 42 minutes is still a lot faster than riding in your car from Kapolei to Ala Moana, but it's still 42 minutes of your time, both ways. So we want to make it as productive as possible. So we are offering free Wi-Fi so that you can utilize your computer devices. Very popular with kids, right? They're not going to ask for free for your passwords. And then the other popular question is, how fast does the trains go? So in between stations, the top speed trains will hit about 55 miles an hour. The average speed from end to end, from Kapolei all the way into downtown, including the time that you are stopped at a station, you will average 30 miles an hour. So again, during most of the day, you are traveling faster than any car on H1. So just some construction snapshots of where we are. Again, we are complete with almost 6 miles of guideway and a track work on top. You can't see it, but on the top we are laying the steel track already on our guideway system. These are just some numbers, number of foundations for the first 10 miles. And this is all just the first 10 miles. So first 10 miles goes from the Croc Center on Kualaka'i Parkway all the way to Aloha Stadium. So we're well on our way in completing most of the foundations, the columns that you see along the way, and I have a lot of pictures of that. The number of segments, because we are building it as a precast box girder construction with these traveling trusses right here, this yellow traveling truss, and I have a little bit more photos of that. And then we're over half of the number of spans on the first 10 miles. And then what you don't see, because you can see the physical construction here in town, but what you don't see is our concurrent construction on our rail cars. Rail cars are the shells, aluminum shells, are being extruded in Pistoia, Italy. They get shipped to Houston, driven over to Pittsburgh, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then the first 4-car train set is expected to land here in the last week of March. So very soon you will start seeing our first set of rail cars coming. So this is just some construction photos. Like I said, precast box girders that are dropped onto this yellow traveling truss, and they're called traveling trusses because it spans between one column to the next. You put all these different segments on top. When you've put them all and then you've tightened them so that they can stand independently, the truss then travels, it rolls over to the next set of columns. This is just an aerial photo going down Farrington Highway. This is the guideway right here. So we're actually somewhere about right here right now. So this is a little dated photo. So guideway is about this over here going in the townbound direction. And then we also have another truss coming from east to west from Waipahu High School. So it's probably about right here. So if you drive down Farrington Highway, we actually only have about a quarter of a mile left of guideway to complete. Just some additional photos, and like I said, we're already laying track on top of the guideway. And then this is just one of the phases where we're doing column construction. So you can see all the different columns, these orange concrete forms, the traveling truss, and then all the different precast segments being put on top, squeezed together. And then this is an area of our rail operations center, our maintenance and storage facility. You have Waipahu High School up here on the top. We're bordered by Leeward Community College on the town side. All the trains, so you can see the guideway right here, right along Farrington. So those of you who go to the soccer fields get very up close and personal to this area as you drive on Farrington. The rail cars will come into the yard, and this is about a 0.7 mile segment out of our 20 that's actually at grade. So for the most part, we're an elevated system, but through our maintenance yard, just because all the trains have to come in here at night, they get stored, they get maintained, they get cleaned and washed every single night. They all come in here, so it all has to be at grade. So this is our one short segment of our system that is at grade. This is the old Navy drum site that belonged to Department of Hawaiian Homelands that has been transferred to Hart for our maintenance yard. It's about 43 acres. And just to give you a perspective on size, this is our operations center. So this is like a Jiffy Lube on steroids. So where our trains can go in and out, there's a pit for them to get under the underbelly, and then overhead cranes so they can maintain the upper parts of the train. But then also all of our offices and our control center, because this is automated, it's fully computerized. So people are running the trains from this one center. They have cameras, they have trackers, and so this building all by itself is 145,000 square feet. This is what's called the balance cantilever. Again, this bottom area is Leeward Community College going across, up to your right, going over H1, H2, and as well as Farrington and Kamehameha Highway. This is what we call the Pearl Highlands Complex. This is Pearl Highlands Shopping Center right here. Pearl Highlands Complex, because not only do we have our Pearl Highlands Station, but we also have a bus transit center, a 1,600 stall parking garage, and an off-ramp that will connect straight from H2 into the parking garage and the bus transit center, because this is our second highest rated ridership station in our 20 miles, because this is the primary entry point for people coming from Waihewa, Mililani, North Shore into our rail system. So again, right, the constant theme of accessibility, ease of accessibility into our rail system. So having people make a decision to get into the rail rather than stay on their car needs to be as easy as possible. So we'll also have, those parking stall counters. We'll have that before you have to make a choice to get on the off-ramp, right? Because if you get on the off-ramp thinking you're gonna get onto rail, and then you show up at the parking garage and there's no stalls for you to park in, you're gonna be pissed off at us and you're not gonna ride rail, right? So we wanna make it as easy of a choice as possible. Again, just more photos of the Balance Cantilever. My only photo of, I think, Kamehameha Highway Guideway. So this is down by Pearl Highlands. This is where we're starting, continuing down. So still doing a lot of, down here, utility work to get out of the way of our columns and stuff. And then this is actually an old photo because there's only 4 rail cars. I was just up there 2 weeks ago in Pittsburgh, California, and they now have 6 cars that they're working on. So these are the first 4 that will actually be delivered. The first 2 will be delivered or be shipped March 2nd, and then the second set will be shipped on March 15th, all to get here for a unveiling later on in March and early April. And then now I'm just going to finish with some station renderings, and I'm just going to focus on all the way up 21 stations. I'm not going to go through all 21, but I'm going to show you some of the urban core ones from Chinatown all the way down to Ala Moana Shopping Center. And some of you guys have seen these because some of you guys are the very ones that we're working with on some of these stations locations. Because one of the things that we also want to do when we develop our stations is make sure that our station and our station plaza is fully integrated with the surrounding environment. So all of our stations, depending on the community, because every community is a little bit different, we want to make sure that we're, number one, in context, that we're not just out of place, but then also we want to understand what developments are happening, how your development is happening, and what are some of the plans that are going on, not just for today, but 20, 30 years from now, so that when we build our station, it is meant to integrate and incorporate pedestrian flow, bike flow, traffic flow, bus flow, all to and from the stations. Again, going towards the theme of accessibility to our rail stations. So this is our first one coming into town. This is at Chinatown Station. And again, all of our stations will have 2 names. We are required to have our station, the primary name of our station must be Hawaiian. And so we have a group that has been commissioned to name or give a name to all of our stations. And it will probably be some kind of place name, most appropriate to the community that it's in, because we do our 20-mile system, we have 21 stations, we do go through 22 ahupua'a. 21 stations are in their own ahupua'a. So each one really is meant to be there and will help tell the story of those different communities. But this is on Nimitz Highway, where we're coming out of Iwalei and into the downtown area. So this is an aerial view. Kekauliki Mall. Another aerial, this is a rendering of what it could look like. And then this is at ground level. So again, we try to, not just with the structure itself, but the landscaping and stuff, trying to keep it appropriate to that specific community. Downtown station is right across from Aloha Tower Marketplace. We have one side right by the old Hiko power plant, and then this station in the Pacific Guardian building is actually our only station right now that is actually incorporated into an existing building. We will be taking the ground floor of the Makai Tower of Pacific Guardian, and that's where you will enter, so that we can then help Pacific Guardian preserve their mall or their lawn area in here for people to for their tenants to congregate. That was one of their big issues, and we do try and work with the landowners to try and accommodate their desires. So this is a at-grade view of what it's going to look like. Civic Center. So this is on Kamehameha School's property down Halekuila. This is the Stanford Car Development, Keoho, and then GED is developing their parcel here with Kamehameha Schools. So again, we worked with both landowner and developer on coming up with concepts, mostly the plaza concepts, because this is meant to be in the future, maybe not right now, but in the future, this is meant to be a part of HCDA's concept of a gateway into Kakaako from South Street. So we wanted to make sure that we preserve some of the open space, and we wanted to blur the lines between our station property and Kamehameha School's property so that you really can't tell where you are or whose property you're on, because it is meant to be just a gathering place or a place for pedestrian to be to have an activated lifestyle right here. So aerial view, again, this is some of the plaza areas. This one is the Kakaako station on Howard Hughes property. So this is the Ode Ross's. I say Ode because it will be demolished. Sports Authority will be staying. And so we just cut through, we come off of Halekuila Cross Ward and through this parcel, and then we come on to Queen Street down here. Ground level view. And then our last station, or our first station, whichever direction you want to think of you going, is the Ala Moana Shopping Center. This is slightly dated because we've actually moved it 200 feet closer towards Pi'ikoi, just to make the pedestrian flow a little bit better, and to work with our bus system so that we can have decrease some of the congestion that's already going on Kona with the bus transit center there. And then we also worked with GGP on making sure that whatever pedestrian flow works for their Ever Wing would make things a lot more integrated with our station at the shopping mall. Aerial view. And then this is just some of our outreach programs for businesses that we will be impacting. Obviously, we're already impacting everyone on the west along Farrington and Kamehameha highways. This is just some of the basic stuff that we do, our outreach and our coordination with some of the businesses, making sure that we're getting enough information to them so that they understand what's going on, but also communicating with the general public to let the public know that these people are still in business and they can definitely use your support during these very difficult times that our construction is impacting their areas. So just some other things. Some of our partners here on the bottom. We can't do everything. We cannot provide direct assistance because of our federal funding, but we have established programs and partnerships with some of these various local and federal entities, SBDC, Small Business Administration, Patsy Mink Center for Business and Leadership, and obviously the Hawaii Chamber of Commerce. And then we have started a couple programs, Shop and Dine on the Line, which is meant, people criticize it as being just a pure discount program, and the businesses say, well, we're already losing business, we can't offer the discount. The discount is not really the point. The point is to be an attraction, to be a focus for people to want to go and help these businesses while they're going through these difficult times. And so Shop and Dine on the Line, we have about 120 businesses that have signed up. It has worked. in some areas maybe not as successful, and it also depends on the type of business that we're talking about. But we also have started what's called a shop and shuttle on the line, where we've offered a free shuttle ride on a weekend up and down Kamehameha Highway. We're currently working to try and get that shuttle program onto Farrington Highway, but right now we are trying to get it on a more regular basis down Kamehameha Highway, and we have had quite a bit of interest. I think our best day we've transported about 80 people during a morning period. And again, also, like I said at the very beginning, part of our desire is to get the right information out. So we do try and outreach and message some of the important facts to as broad a general public as we can. So we have weekly email blasts with just some of the things that are going on at Hart, some of the traffic advisories that are going on. But then also we're on social media. We're on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Nixle. We have links to Go Akamai and other traffic websites so that you can try and get some of this information that people are so desperately seeking. So this is one way to get in touch with us. You can always call us directly at our office, and we're happy to get you or put you in touch with the right people to get you whatever information that you are looking for. So with that, I do appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, and I'm happy to take any questions if you might have them. Okay, so very good question. So at our two terminal stations, and let me see if I can pull up the Ala Moana station. Okay, so as you see here, beyond the station, we have what's called tail tracks. So it's basically the tail of the system. So the trains basically pull off as more of a storage, or if they needed to transition off if we have another train coming. But at these terminus stations, they're what they call center platforms. Okay, so everybody, regardless of which direction you're going, which train is going to come, everybody is on the center platform, and then a train might come from this side or it might come from this side. You'll board it, which is why you just get on in the center, and then it will just turn around and go back. We have multiple crossovers so that if the train is going to go back and it's on this side, it pulls up on this side, which is the eastbound direction, it will leave, and then at some point we have a crossover so it'll get back on the right side. And that's also, these crossovers are also important. Should we have a stalled train, should a train stall on the track, we will have opportunities for the other trains to pass it at these crossover locations. Absolutely. Yeah. And like the mayor said, as we grow this system, we can introduce more and more cars. So with our 20 trains, our 4-car trains, so 80 cars, 20 trains, we will deploy 17 of them. So we'll keep 3 in reserve. And that'll give us the 5-minute headways. If we introduce another 40 cars, so another 10 trains, we can actually reduce the headway down to about 3 minutes. So there is we can even come even sooner than people, right? So the wait time here is very, very short during peak hours. 5 minutes is already very short. You don't have any buses on the system currently that stop at bus stops every 5 minutes, right? Which is why this system actually replaces the central core of the bus routes right now. And so what we'll be able to do in working with the bus is redeploy. There's about 500 buses, right? There's some communities that are currently underserved. There are some communities that aren't served. By taking a lot of the buses that are, and taking the bus routes that go along this 20-mile corridor, redeploying them in a much more circulatory neighborhood route, we're going to be able to get far more bus service into communities, get them to the rail station so that they can be far more integrated into a more mobile transit system.
With the current layout, how would a possible spur be raised? I know that's far down in the future, but
Yeah. Good question. So also by moving the station, 200 feet further to your left, it helps us preserve some other options. So, and at some point we're going to have to, if we want to go to UH, which the original EIS already contemplated, studied, and approved a 27-mile system, right? 20-mile system that we're only building 20. It's called the MOS, minimum operating segment. But the EIS studied 27 miles. It's called the locally preferred alternative, the LPA. It goes to Manoa. But by the time we finish this, the 20 miles, and then we want to start the design and the construction for the extension to Manoa, the EIS will be considered or be deemed stale or old. So all the studies are still, the EIS is still valid, but a lot of the information in the EIS will have to be revalidated or updated. So we will have to do a supplemental EIS. And at that point, when we do a supplemental EIS, we will have to look at alternate routes again, as well as alternate technologies. That's a part of the federal law. So some of our options would be bending it up on Pecoy, bending up through here, through the Samku site. We're working with Samku on an alternative that goes through. So there's a number of options that we still have and have preserved to be able to continue this line all the way down Kapiolani, past the convention center, up University Avenue, and then to terminate near Pucks Alley. So that's kind of how the extension would go, if we stuck with the EIS. But we are required to relook at everything. And then we do go another 5 miles west, beyond the Kroc Center. Hope that helped? No? Yeah. So, and I don't have a rendering of that. We do have, but I just didn't bring it. Okay, so if you envision the airport and you have the overseas terminal and the overseas parking lot, and then you have the new international parking structure, right, which is the new one that the airport built about 7-10 years ago. So our station is right between the two of them on the Mauka side of the parking lot. But it's right up against them. Our guideway goes, if I go all the way to our guideway goes right up against the parking structures, and then the vertical circulation, because if you think about the two parking lots, the overseas parking lot has pedestrian bridges to the overseas terminal on the 4th floor, right? You park, if you want to go catch United or American, you park in the overseas parking lot. You go to the 4th floor, walk over, and then you catch the elevator going down. So our station matches up with the 4th floor of the overseas terminal, if you want to go to the overseas terminal. On the inter-island terminal, there's a bridge on the 6th floor of the international parking structure. So our station connects to the 6th floor of the international parking structure, so that we are reducing the number of times you have to get in and out of an elevator to change floors, so that you can just get to one of your terminals as easy as possible. Again, with that theme of ease of access, right? And some people think, oh, it's kind of a far ways to walk, right? From, if you're catching Hawaiian, it's about 1,000 feet from Hawaiian's baggage claim or check-in to the station, about 1,000 feet. But those of you who fly to SFO and you fly Hawaiian, it's about 1,000 feet from Hawaiian's check-in to the BART station, because it's in the international terminal. So we're actually more convenient than most other transit systems that go to an airport. Yes, which you don't hear. You got to walk a little bit, 1,000 feet, but good for your health. Any other questions? You had a question? Go. Yeah, no, I mean, and all of our stations have, the platforms have platform screen gates, right? Those of you who've ridden WMATA in Washington DC or BART, you just kind of get up to the edge of the platform and the train comes right by. And if you're not standing back enough, it's kind of scary, right? It's going by pretty fast. We have glass screen gates or walls that will separate you on the platform from the train. And they'll match up, or hopefully that's what we're going to test. Make sure the doors match up from the train and the platform screen gate so that there is no opportunity, because one of the big things that we've seen across the world that starts to happen, and there's videos all over the place of mothers with strollers, because the platforms kind of slope down towards the pit where the trains are for drainage. So there's videos of all these mothers that kind of leave their stroller, go grab a bag, and then the next thing you know, the stroller is rolling into the pit. And there's actually one where the train actually rolls over the stroller. It just so happens that the stroller was in the middle and the train went over it and didn't touch the baby. So, but that was one of the first decisions that we made, was we're putting screen gates, safety gates along all of our platforms, especially because people in Hawaii aren't used to rail transit, right? I mean, we have a lot of our community that has gone to the mainland, to cities with transit. A lot of people gone away to college, lived on the mainland for a little while, but there's still a larger group of our population that is not familiar with rail transit, and so these kind of safety precautions are first and foremost. All of our elevators are fiberglass, and are glass columns, so that you can see in and out. If you're inside the elevator, you can see out where you're getting out. If you're outside, you can see who's in there, especially because there'll be a lot of evening activities. We want people to have the proper line of sight. They gotta feel safe to ride the rail. Good question also, so we're building 20 miles, right? The first 10 miles is currently under construction. The second 10 miles is actually in procurement right now. The plan right now, and it's still up to the decision makers, the policy makers, the elected officials, but the plan right now is to finish the first 10 miles between Kapolei and Aloha Stadium and open it up. Don't know how many people are actually going to ride it other than on UH football games. But you may have some ridership actually going the other way, right? Everyone thinks ridership is going to be from west into town, right? But during the first 10 miles, when we only open from Aloha Stadium to Kapolei, it might actually be the other way. People going to LCC or going to UH West Oahu. That might be the initial majority of the flow, but we'll open it up. We're not sure if we're going to charge. It might be free, just to let people kind of get used to the transit culture. But when the full 20 miles is open, then we'll open the full 20 miles, because the last 10 miles will all be constructed at the same time. So, I mean, we're not going to be able to open portions sequentially at that point. But we are targeting September of 2018 as the opening of the first 10 miles, and then December of 2021 as the opening for the full 20 miles. It does take, I want to kind of preface it, it does take 2 years to test and commission. So you're actually going to see construction being done and then trains going on the rail guideway for about 18 to 24 months with nobody on them. Okay? And so rail critics are obviously going to say, see, I told you there's no ridership for rail. So we're actually, we're thinking about it in our next budget, putting in a line item for blow-up dolls so we can put it inside the trains while we're testing it. But no, it takes about 20 months or so to test and commission, especially a automated driverless system. It has to be right the first time, right? Or else people aren't going to ride it. And I do want to correct, the mayor made the statement that we'll be the first. There is no other driverless system in this country. BART is actually a driverless system, but the drivers in the cab don't drive. When BART converted from a driver's system, a manual system, to a driverless system, the union balked, they striked, and so BART caved in, and so they pay for drivers to sit in the cab, not to drive. So that's partially what you're paying on BART. So it sounds like I'm being kicked off. Time to go. But if you have any other questions at any other time, feel free to grab, I'm happy to give you my card. Feel free to call, email us, whatever. Always happy to talk.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much for that. Thank you. I want to thank both of our speakers. As was really good information, but I also want to remind everyone to get your ticket validated as you leave. And thank you for your time today, and have a wonderful day. Hopefully you join us for our marketing meeting. Thanks.